Yo, what's good everybody, this is Rocket here, welcome back to a brand new video. In this video I'm going to be teaching you how to edit your Valorant montages just like popular YouTuber Ladiff. Now I'm assuming if you clicked on this video you already know who Ladiff is, but in case you don't, he posts highlight montages of his Valorant clips on YouTube similar to other Valorant YouTubers like Zishu and Cjaiye. I actually covered Zishu in my previous video, if you want to check that out then feel free, it'll be the card in the top right corner now. After a lot of requests in my previous video, I'll be editing in Adobe Premiere Pro instead of After Effects in this video, although this video is more to show you the method and techniques rather than being software specific, so you could definitely still follow along in other editing software. I'm quite ill right now, so if my voice sounds a bit funny then that's why. And yeah, other than that, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and let's get into it. So in my case, I'm going to open up Adobe Premiere Pro, and now you're going to want to import your clips. So in Adobe Premiere Pro, you can right click on the project bin over here and then click import, and then find your clips this way. Or what I tend to do is just drag and drop them straight in. So I'm going to be using clips from Craze Visuals Clip Pack. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can get it, along with a link to his channel. And I'm just going to literally select them all, click and drag into my project bin, and you'll see they appear over here. If your Premiere Pro layout doesn't look like mine, make sure you come up here to the workspaces and make sure you're in the effects workspace. It may look either something like this or something like this. So just make sure you're in the effects workspace and it should resemble mine. Now we need to make a sequence, or essentially a timeline, to put our clips on. So again, right click in the project bin, new item, and then click sequence. Come over to settings, we're going to make it custom at 60 FPS, and then you can choose the resolution. So I'd recommend going with what your clips are. So if you have a 1920 by 10, if your clips are 1920 by 1080, then I'd stick with that. If they're 2560 by 1440, then go with that. Crazy's clips are 1920 by 1080, so I'm going to be using this. Make sure you're on square pixels, no field, 60 FPS timecode or frames, it's up to you, whichever you prefer working with. Rec 701 for the color space. Audio you can leave default, and again, video previews is completely up to you. I use iframe only MPEG. And then no need to check maximum bit depth or render quality, and then we can name our sequence whatever you want to call it. Now this is what I'd recommend for making a video like Ladiff. However, if you'd rather just use settings determined by your clips, just come over to your clip, right click on it, and then new sequence from clip, and you'll see it will create a sequence just like that. I get this question quite a lot, and that is, do I need to make a separate sequence for every clip? And the answer is no. Assuming that all your clips use the same settings, which I'm assuming they would if you recorded them yourself, you can literally just drag and drop every clip in to your current sequence, and they'll follow on from each other. You can add transitions and whatever in between, but I'll show you how to do that later. There's no need to make a separate sequence or composition or anything like that for individual clips. Now comes my favorite and arguably the most important step, and that is choosing the song you want to edit to. Now, as you can see, Ladiff uses a lot of mainstream copyrighted music for his montages, and you'll notice I do the same throughout this video. Now you must be thinking, how was I able to do this without risking a copyright strike or losing monetization? Well, that wasn't a problem thanks to this video's sponsor, Licked. Licked is an amazing service with an extensive catalogue of over 1 million mainstream songs for you to choose from for use in your videos and edits, completely copyright claim free. Click my link at the top of the description and start browsing their playlist to find the perfect song for your edit. Licked makes it super easy to find exactly what you're looking for with their list of categorized playlists to suit any video. With tracks from some of the biggest mainstream artists, perhaps you'll choose something like this. Hey, off the juice, coding got me tripping. This. What you know about rolling down in the deep, when your brain goes numb, you can call that mental, or even this. Smashing mics in karaoke bars. You're running late with half your makeup on. Every song you've heard or are yet to hear I got from Licked. Not only do they offer mainstream chart-topping music, but they also have an amazing stock music catalogue including over 100,000 tracks with unlimited use across any social media platform, all for just one subscription. So don't get your videos claimed, sign up to Licked with my link for 14 days free stock music and 50% off your first mainstream track. So in my case, I've gone with Lemonade by Internet Money featuring Toliver, Gunna and NAV. This song was featured in one of Ladiff's first highlight montage videos and really blew up his channel. It currently has over 2 million views, I believe. So I thought it'd be suitable for this tutorial. And I'm just going to double click on it. And you can see it opens up over here in the source panel. And if we click the play button, we can play through it. Now, if you want to import the whole song, you can just drag and drop it straight onto your timeline just like this. As you'll see, there's video tracks above and audio tracks below, so just make sure you keep it like that. My clips currently don't have any audio, but I'm assuming yours will, in which case just position the song layer just below the clip audio. But I don't want to edit to the whole song, so I'd rather trim it now rather than later, so I'm just going to listen through. Okay, so I'm going to want to pick around here where the beat starts to drop. So I'm going to just put my cursor back slightly, press I on my keyboard to select the in point. I'm going to play through. And I've decided this is where I want the end to be, so I'm going to press O on my keyboard. And you'll see it's just highlighted this section here. And now when I drag and drop the song into my project, it's just the portion that I had selected. You could always extend it later, drag it back down, cut it, whatever. I just find it easier to do it right from the beginning. Now I'm going to hide my clip and we're going to go about marking where the beats are in the song. So I find it helps to expand our audio layer. So I'm just going to click underneath A1, which is the track that I have the song on, and drag it down. And you'll see it makes it a bit bigger like this. And I'm going to zoom into our timeline. I'm doing that using the plus and minus keys. Alternatively, you can drag this down here to zoom in and out. And you can see we have a waveform right here. Now using this waveform, I'm going to mark where the beats are. So I'm just going to listen through with my clip selected, and I'm going to be pressing M on my keyboard, which you can see if I press M, it adds this little green marker. Control Z to undo. And I'm just going to press M whenever I hear a beat and try and line it up with the waveform. So as you can see here, the waveform peaks here, 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 and here. These are the 4 beats I've marked so far. I'd imagine it's going to be here and here as well. We'll listen through it, and these beats should be synced up. So I'll mark there as well. Just like that. Again, you don't also have to sync to beats. You can also sync to claps and hi-hats or whatever. Just the beats is the convention, but you know, feel free to sync to really whatever you want to. Sometimes significant words in the lyrics as well are good to sync to. Again, of course, if you're struggling to see with the waveforms like this, just expand them again. Might make it a bit easier. And there you go. I think that's all synced up. So I'm going to drag my audio back up and then we'll listen to it, and hopefully every marker will line up with a beat.
Tripping, got the coupe, Walker roof is missing. Ice, lemonade, my neck was tripping. Ice, lemonade, my neck was tripping.
And there you go. You can see we have some red over here, which means the audio is peaking. So I'm actually just going to lower that by about 5 decibels, and hopefully that'll fix it. There you go. You can see it's just in that yellow bit. You want to be sort of want to be hitting just below this line. You don't really want it to be peaking necessarily. So -5 for the moment will do. I could probably increase that a bit later, but if you have clip audio, I'm sure you'll probably want to hear that as well. Now what you're going to want to do is look through your clip and mark where your kills are. Now, Ladiff doesn't have a lot of velocity and sync in his montages compared to other YouTubers like Zishu, for example, where he'll have most of his kills sync. Ladiff only tends to sync the last kill in the clip, and then it slows down and there'll be some kind of cool effect over the top of it. So I'm just going to sync the last kill, but of course, feel free to sync any of the others. I do have in-depth syncing tutorials. I'll put a link in the top right corner right now if you want to follow along, both on After Effects and Premiere Pro, so feel free to check those out. But for this, I'm just going to scroll through the clip to where he gets the kill. So I'm going to go when it comes out of the scope, so that's here, and I'm going to press M on my keyboard to mark that on the clip. And here you can see I've just shrunk the clip down, and I've dragged this marker on the clip to line up with one of the beats on the song. I'm going with the first one. Again, if you're syncing multiple clips, it's just going to be whichever beat's next, pretty much. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just showing you how to add effects like Ladiff, basically. Now, after Ladiff gets the last kill in the clip, he'll usually slow it down for like a knife pull-out animation or something like that. But because it doesn't happen right away after the kill, on the next beat, which seems to be pretty well timed with when the knife comes out, I'm just going to split the layer, coming over to the razor tool and clicking cut on the layer, and then I'm going to right click on the layer here and go to speed duration, and I'm going to slow it down to 20% speed. So now it looks something like this. And I have a transition on this next beat, so I'm going to cut the clip there. You'll notice this looks a bit choppy, so to fix that, I'm going to right click on the clip and then go to time interpolation and change it to optical flow, and that will make it a bit smoother. You may not necessarily be able to notice it during the preview, but when you render it out, it definitely will be. And you'll notice that this bar above has gone red, meaning that we should probably render it into out before, if you want to see a accurate representation of what the clip looks like. And now we can start adding our effects to this. So you're going to want to right click over in your project bin, new item, adjustment layer, make sure it matches your sequence settings, which we defined earlier, and you're going to want to drag and drop that above your clip. Now it's 5 seconds by default. I'm just going to leave it like that for the moment and we'll trim it later. Now kill impact effects like flashes and blurs and stuff, you're going to want to add when you get the kill, so where this marker is on the clip, which we defined before. And then if you're going to add any effects like glows and stuff to the knife like Ladiff does, then you'll want to do that later on during the slow-mo. So and we'll create a separate adjustment layer for that. But to start with, we're just going to do the kill effect. So I'm going to come to our marker where we get the kill and drag our adjustment layer down to start when we get the kill. I'm going to come up to effects and search for brightness and contrast, drag and drop that on the adjustment layer. I'm going to increase the brightness to 100, and I'm going to click this little stopwatch button here, which adds a keyframe. Now you'll see up here, you can't really see it, it's off the edge. If I drag it out a bit, it's this little blue diamond. I'll put it back. And that essentially means that at this point in time, we want the brightness to be 100. So if I then drag through the clips, you could do up here, or you could do it on the timeline down here to around here, I'm going to say, and then put the brightness back to 0. You'll see it's added another diamond, and between the point where we want it to be 100 and the point where we've now set it to 0, it's going to slowly fade out. So you'll see this, watch this value here by brightness as we go through. It fades out from 100 to 0. Now we can choose how that fades out using graphs like this. We can set it to say ease in or something like that, but I'll talk about that in a different video. For the moment, leaving it linear is completely fine. We got an effect called Gaussian blur, so under blur and sharpen, drag and drop that on the adjustment layer. I'm going to basically copy exactly what we did with the brightness and contrast. So we're going to increase the blurriness to say 20 and keyframe that. Skip to the last keyframe of our brightness and contrast, set our Gaussian blur back to 0, and you'll see now not only is it bright, but it also blurs and fades out just like that. So currently it looks like this. You'll see it's quite subtle. You can go more crazy with the effects if you want to, but they're just two that I do recommend adding. And then one more would be lens distortion under distort. So we'll drag and drop that on and increase the curvature to -20. Keyframe that, go back in line with our brightness, contrast and Gaussian blur keyframes and set the curvature back to 0. And now it looks like this. And now we're going to want an accurate representation of what our clip actually looks like. So before our effects are applied, I'm going to press I, and afterwards I'm going to press O, and then come up to sequence, render into out. And you'll see it renders just like this. And now, if you notice, the clip is much smoother where we've slowed it down. One thing I do want to mention quickly is if you're using the clips from Cjaiye's pack, when you import them, you'll need to set the speed duration to 800, and then they'll be at normal speed. Because if you leave it at 100, they'll be 8 times as slow, because he recorded them at, I believe, 60 FPS, and then ran them through a AI video interpolator called Rife, which is an algorithm on flow frames. I have an entire other video talking about that, link in the top right corner if you want to check that out. And essentially it's converted this 60 FPS video into a 480 FPS video. So when you play it back on a 60 FPS timeline, it is really slow motion. So by setting the speed duration to 800, it makes it normal speed. And then when you want to get to a point that you want to slow down, for example with the kill here, if I then cut it and change this speed duration down to say 300, it will be slow and smooth automatically. There's no need to add any optical flow or anything like that because it is running at 60 FPS already. In my case, the clips that I'm using here are the ones from the clip pack, but they're at 60 FPS rather than 480, so I don't have to mess around with the speed of them. Now, before we get on to the next part, which is adding effects, I'm going to quickly show you how to do a transition. So I'll just shrink our adjustment layer down a bit because we don't need it over there right now. I'm going to right click and go to clear in out because we don't need to see that on our timeline anymore. And then I'm just going to drag and drop another clip on. Now if you head over to my other video for my transitions pack, which provides the download link for my montage transitions pack, I have one for After Effects and Premiere Pro, so pick the respective one for which software you're using. In my case, Premiere Pro, you can see I have all the transitions up here, and I'm going to drag the blur glow transition on, and you'll see just like that it transitions between the two clips. That video has the tutorial for applying every single one of these transitions, so make sure you watch that as some of them are slightly different. That's one of the easiest ones, so yeah, that's just how you go about transitioning from one clip to another. And then with this clip, you do the exact same thing, cut it down, sync it to the audio, slow it down, add your effects, and that's how you go about creating the whole montage essentially. Now, for adding effects to the weapon, you want to select and drag all your clips up one layer if you're using the video layer 1, and then hold Alt and drag your slowed part of the clip down. And with the top clip selected, you're going to want to click the pen tool over here underneath opacity, click on the viewport window here, and then click the tilde key on your keyboard. It's the one to the left of 1 in the top left corner, and that's going to full screen the viewport window. And I'm going to change fit down here to 150 and just drag my viewport over like this so I can see the hand and the weapon. And then using this pen tool, I'm just going to start off screen. I'm going to start clicking around just like this. I'm going to create a mask around the weapon essentially, just like this. If you need to zoom in any more, obviously feel free to do so. So in my case, I'm going to do that. I'm making a very rough mask. Of course, be more careful with yours. Mine's just for the sake of the tutorial, so I don't want to spend forever on it. If you're using a program like After Effects, then I'd recommend you to use the rotoscope tool, which is essentially just a smart way of selecting something in your clip without having to manually mask it out like this, especially if you want to animate the mask. So I would recommend that you do that. But since this is a Premiere Pro tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we just join the mask up at the bottom like this. I'm going to press the tilde key again and put the zoom back to fit. And you'll see now I have this mask. Now, it doesn't look like it's done much, but if I hide the layer beneath, you'll see it's isolated the weapon for us. And I'm going to decrease the mask feather to 0 so that we have a clean cutout of our hand and knife. Now, if I unhide the layer below, that's what it looks like. Now, unfortunately, what you're going to need to do is animate that mask. So you'll see if I drag to a point in the future and hide the layer below, you see it's just staying, it only really fits that one frame right here. So what you need to do is on the mask, keyframe the mask path and then go forward a few frames. And you're going to have to repeat the process essentially and just put all the points back on where they're supposed to be. And usually doing this every 5 or so frames will be enough. Sometimes you will have to do it every frame, but just test it. Start by doing, say, every 10th frame, and then in the places where it looks like it needs it, say do every 5, every 2 from inside of that, and so on, until you basically have a smooth transition like that. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to bother doing that. I have plenty of other masking tutorials out there. And now I will show you how to add the effect. So I do have another video showing you a slightly different effect to the one that I'm going to be creating today. I'll put a video on screen right now of what that effect looks like. You can click the link in the top right corner to check that video out. So if you want to recreate that effect, go check that video out. That video uses the Universe Ecto plugin, I believe. So that will work in all software that plugin is compatible with. I believe I teach it in After Effects, but it will definitely work in Premiere Pro as well. Here I have a mask from a clip that I cut out earlier. So I'm going to be teaching you how to create this effect on here, although this will work on the mask exactly how I did it previously. This one I think is just a bit of a better example to teach you and to learn from. So I'm going to be using this. If I re-enable the layer beneath, you can see this is what it looks like. So I'm going to start by duplicating the cutout layer up one, just because it's always good to have a spare without any effects on it. I'm just going to drag our extra spare layer out of the way and hide it. So we're going to start by right-clicking on the layer with the mask on it, so this layer, and right-click and go to Nest, and then press OK. That'll turn it green, and essentially that means that we can the mask won't be restricting where our effect can effect, essentially. And now to create this effect, you will need the Sapphire suite of plugins. So if you don't have that, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can go get it. And again, this will work in any software that has Sapphire. So I believe Premiere Pro, After Effects, Sony Vegas. I'm not sure if DaVinci Resolve has it. I believe it does, but don't quote me on that. So we're going to search for the Warp Bubble 2 effect and drag and drop that onto our clip just like that, and you'll see it creates this sort of effect. And now you're going to need to copy my settings. So you're going to leave all of this at default, but change the A speed X to 95 and the B speed X to -95. Everything else we're going to leave completely default. Next, we're going to add the edge colorize effect, so S_edge colorize. The S_ bit means that it's from the Sapphire plugin suite. And we're going to change the smooth to 15. Leave subpixel smoothing on. Increase the brightness to 1.5. Rotate colors, we're just going to drag up a random amount. Doesn't really matter. And leave the background color as black. Now, these colors here you can customize to be absolutely anything you want. So I'm going to start with a red, go to, say, an orangey kind of color. Bottom we'll have as yellow, I guess, and then left we'll make like a purple, so something like that. You can customize this to look exactly how you want it to. And then we're going to add the S_glow effect, again from the Sapphire suite. Drag and drop that on, and we're going to change the glow width in half, so we're going to put it to 18. Again, you could leave that at a higher number if you want to, and everything else we're going to leave at default. Again, you can mess around with it as much as you like. These are just the settings that I'm suggesting. Just use them as a template and, sort of do what you want with them. And now we're going to come up to opacity blend mode, and we're going to change this to screen. You could use add as well if you like. That's what add looks like. But I'm going to use screen. It doesn't really matter. And essentially, if I render into out this, now the clip is frozen in the background. This is just to show the effect, but you'd be doing this over like a slow motion clip. And I render into out, And here you can see this is what the effect looks like once it's been rendered into out. And of course you can mess around with like the frequency and the amplitude and things like that to increase how intense the effect is, how fast it is, stuff like that, as well as change the colors, the glow intensity. It's fully customizable. There are all these settings here, as well as changing the colors and things like that. You can also even enable the spare layer we had in front, and then if I set the affected layer to add or something like that, you create an effect like this. We'll have to render it into out again though to get smooth playback, which I'm not going to do, but you can imagine what it looks like. And if you follow those steps and make some slight variations, maybe add a couple of other effects, swap some in, swap some out, you'll be able to make pretty much all the effects that Ladiff uses on all the knives. Now for another effect that you'll see in a lot of Ladiff's videos, which is like a kind of edge glowing scanning kind of effect, I'll show you what I mean in a minute. To create this, it's not really an effect that you'd use during like the slow motion weapon pullout. It's usually used just before a kill in the main clip, so I'll just show you how to do that quickly. So we'll just scroll back in our clip to somewhere like here, just to get a good wide shot so you can sort of see exactly what's happening. And we're going to want to duplicate our clip, so we'll have our base layer, which we won't do anything to, but our layer above, we're going to want to add brightness and contrast to. We're going to also want to add Sapphire Edge Detect, so again for this you will need the Sapphire plugin. And we're also going to add Universe Edge Glow. Now you can use Sapphire glow edges, it does work the same. I just find that Universe Edge Glow works slightly better. Again, yeah, if you don't have the Universe plugin, you need Sapphire for the rest of the effect, so you'll have Sapphire glow edges, you can use that instead. I'm going to use Uni Edge Glow and I'll explain how Sapphire works as well. So you're going to want to come over to the Edge Detect settings and change them from RGB edges to mono edges, and tick Colorize under the Red Giant Universe Edge Glow, and pick a color. So I'm going to go with like a pink or something like that. And then if we scroll up and change the blend mode under opacity of our clip to screen, you see we have this kind of edge glowing effect, and by playing around with the contrast we can make it scan across the scene sort of just like this. So I'll have it just before we get the kill, so it's going to fade out just before, so we'll have it disappear here. So we're going to set our we're going to keyframe our contrast at -100 when we want it to fade out. Go back in time, so I'll have it dim it maybe here. Change the contrast to 100 and make sure that that's keyframed. And we're going to set the opacity to 0 here. Go forward a few frames and increase our opacity back to 100. So the effect looks just like this. So I've actually moved the keyframes much closer together. They're still exactly the same as they were before with the opacity and the edge glow, but I have it in the scope instead. So I have the keyframes start as soon as we go into the scope, and then there's the kill, and this is what it looks like. I'm thinking if I change the color of this to match the scope of Chamber's weapon and re-enable the layer, that might look even cooler. Just like that, and obviously imagine that we have the effect that I taught you earlier over the weapon right here. And for one final bonus effect that Ladiff also uses in his edits is Swish Pan. Now, this does come with Sapphire, however, I've released my own free presets, which you don't need Sapphire for, just stock Adobe Premiere Pro. So I'm going to show you how to use those ones. And typically, Swish Pan is used as a transition. You can use it as a transition if you want to, although I've noticed Ladiff typically just fades between his clips, doesn't use any crazy transitions, but does instead use Swish Pan to sync and to add effects. So you're going to want to drag your adjustment layer onto your project, and then we're going to shrink it down to about this size. And I'll just show you what it looks like on the main body of the clip. So once you've installed my presets, which I'll leave a link to down in the description, it's the same transition pack from before. You can just drag a swish on. So I'm going to go with right swish, drag and drop that onto the adjustment layer. And if I play the video, you'll see it's just a quick swish, just like this. And you'll notice Ladiff will often do maybe one left swish and one right swish. So I'll just remove the attributes from this and then add a left swish on. It'll look something like this. Now, you're going to want to obviously sync these up with beats, for example. So if I just pull these out a little bit further, I could put one on this beat and one on this beat, and make sure that they're over the top like that. It will look something like this. And here you can see I've lined it up. I've lined the swishes up with the beats and pushed it back slightly, so that it looks like this. And there you go, that's pretty much how Ladiff edits his videos. Obviously you drag extra clips on, you could use the swish pad to transition between them, as well as use any of the other transitions in my transitions pack. As you can see on the right hand side, you have all of these transitions to choose from, and it's pretty much a rinse and repeat. Sync the kill to the beat, slow it down, add some brightness, contrast, blur, maybe do the glowing scan, add the weapon effect, pretty much just rinse and repeat that for every clip of your montage. And in the simplest way possible, that's pretty much how a Ladiff montage is edited. Of course, there's a lot more that does go into it. Each video has something a little bit different, so don't only use this as like a starting point, and you know, use your own creativity on top of it, but as a basic guide, that's pretty much how it's done. If you guys did enjoy this video and you want access to download the project file from this tutorial, so this exact project that I'm working on here will be available over on my Patreon, so you can go and grab that, as well as the project files for all of my other previous tutorials and my montages and edits as well. If you did enjoy, please slap a like on it, subscribe, leave a comment with any video suggestions you'd like to see on the channel in the future. Thanks to Licht for sponsoring this video. Go check them out with the link at the top of the description. And other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.